We're excited to bring this back. Not under the circumstances that we're bringing this back, but we're so happy to have Dominic Robinson back here on Warchant TV. He's our lead football analyst, and it's time to break down some X's and O's. In fact, Dominic and I were just talking before we hit record on this video, and I said, which way are we going today, offense or defense? And Dominic, you said, I feel like I got a two-way go here. I could choose either path. Today, we are going to break down what's wrong with Florida State's defense through two games. So with that said, Dominic, it's great to be back on screen with you again. I wish we were breaking down happy things, but we got to break it down because the film doesn't lie, right?
Absolutely, man. And one, I'm really excited to be back, to be doing this, to dive deeper instead of just watching the TV copy and kind of listen to what the announcers have to say about who we are and what we are, maybe what the coaches are doing or the players are doing or aren't doing, and really dive into, the real, like you said, the film doesn't lie. And so the film told me a lot. And it's definitely not the sky is falling, although it feels that way. There's the things that are happening are correctable. It's definitely, obviously, it's not a 13-0 team. It's not a 13-0 defense. But it's a good enough defense to get back in the fight here and maybe even fight for the conference.
This is what you're here for, everybody. Here it is, access to the All-22. This is such gold, and Dominic is great to share it with us and then share his insights as somebody who, if you just joined us this year, Dominic played for Florida State on both sides of the football, special teams, every phase of the game that you want. He's got experience in, and then beyond that, coaching-wise as well. He's been in these film rooms not only as a player but as a coach. So, Dominic, again, the film doesn't lie. What truths is the All-22 telling you?
The main thing that kept jumping out was communication. And one thing we talk about all the time is in order to win or to have a championship defense, we got to have obnoxious communication. It's got to get to the point where the other team gets tired of us saying the things that we say, whatever our calls are, that everybody on the defense knows exactly what the guy to his left and the guy to his right is doing. And what I saw time and time again was just small breakdowns in communication, maybe just one person not communicating or one person not understanding the communication that was causing things to break down. So this is going to be a very common theme that you're going to see. So first I'll start with the play that we've seen too much in the first 2 weeks and a play that we're going to continually see for the rest of this season. This what's drawn up here is a mesh concept. And the guy that went in motion now is going to run a rail. A rail route is like a wheel route or a route up the sideline from the backfield or from the slot area. So we're going to see this multiple times. So here's the concept. You have a guy spotting over the ball. You have two mesh routes that are going to cross over the middle, and then a guy running a rail route. Right now, the cornerback on the left side has to understand that he's going to go in and out with the motion guy. That's number 0 that's running with the motion. The reason why is because he has leverage to play that rail route and number 0 doesn't. Obviously, he's if that guy goes up the sideline, he's going to get beat. So once the ball snapped, 0 realizes 23 isn't going to take my man. Okay, he didn't do the in and out. So now he's on some soccer grass.
Yep.
That maybe not be prepared for a football game, and tries to come back, change directions, and ends up being a big gain here. This is a 3rd and 6. Okay, this is a 3rd and 6 early in the game. So I did want to go back at the very beginning part of this. You can see number 0 communicating, and he's communicating to 22. But there is no one on the left side that's communicating. You see number 1 and number 23 aren't also communicating. So the communication doesn't get all the way across the formation. You can see number 8 right here. He's communicating with number 0. So those 3 guys are all on the same page. But the one guy that we needed it to is 23. 23 doesn't. He plays man. He plays number 1. The number 1, number 0 is expecting for him to help. He doesn't. So now he tries to come back and play the number 2 receiver or the mesh coming back, and ends up giving up a big gain right there. So here's BC. You're going to see the same concept. You're going to watch the same things happen here. Number 3 is communicating right now. He's communicating, and he's communicating with 10. They're on the same page. The motion happens. Now he's going to communicate with the other side. Here's the route concept. Again, you're getting mesh. The problem is the rail and the cornerback on the right side now was never a part of the communication. So he's going to take the OTB route, the over the ball route, and they're going to turn the rail loose. Luckily, the guy drops it. He's wide open. He doesn't make the play. But the coaches are now going to bank that. They're going to say, okay, hey, just so we know, they're struggling communicating, and they probably already knew from the game before, from the Georgia Tech game, that this was probably going to be an issue, and that's why they spammed it. I mean, they ran it a bunch of times. So again, I'll go back to the beginning. You can see 10 is communicating with 3. 3 goes in motion. There's no new communication with the now right corner. So he communicated with the slot defender. He never communicated with the outside corner. So when 2 goes out, or 2 in this case is the back, that's the number 2 receiver. When he goes out to rail, he's expecting for the corner to take the out, and he's going to take the in. And you can tell by his footwork. If you watch 10's footwork, he sits and he comes back inside, but his man just went outside. So he's expecting to get help on the outside. The corner doesn't help him. He squeezes it, and that could have been an easy big gain or touchdown.
So that's something, Dominic, that we saw last year in the Chestnut Hill game too. You know, Castellanos ran all over Florida State, and these breakdowns seem to happen when it pertained to the quarterback, where for people like me, you see 2 defenders on 1 receiver or 1 target, and you know it shouldn't be. But it's just, from our perspective, again, we don't have the experience that you do. We don't know the why. So again, the common denominator here is about communicating responsibilities before the snap and through motion. That's the other part of it too, right?
Correct. Yes. Almost every one of these plays, you're going to have a shift in emotion on it. And so pre-snap communication as well as post-snap communication. And that's where you get back to what I said at the beginning, which is obnoxious communication on defense. You got to be talking more than you think you need to talk. The best defenses never stop talking. They talk for 60 minutes because it's sideline, it's pre-snap, it's halftime. I mean, it doesn't stop. Here it is. Oh, and then it's also verbal and nonverbal. So you're going to see a lot of that, and I'm going to come back to that a lot too, is that you're going to see, when I communicate with you verbally, I need to know that you know what I've signaled, what I've communicated, and I need you to give it back to me. So we need communication on both sides here. So this is where this clip comes into play. The left side safety, number 1, is trying to communicate to number 12 that the number 1 receiver is tight and that they're probably going to get that rail concept. So here's the concept again, same concept that we've seen all the way back to week 1. Boy. You're going to get a motion now this time. So all of the concept's always the same. It just can be run in different ways. In this case, you're going to get motion and then the rail from the back up there on the left. Right away, you can see when you get the motion, nobody's going with number 11. The backer, who is actually the low hole player, so he's responsible for a quarterback run or anything that's low over the middle. He sees that he's running free and he goes and chases it. Obviously, that's not necessarily the matchup that you want on it. You also can see the corner up top, the defense's right to the defensive right, the offensive left. He squeezes this mesh route again, and they could have hit the rail route just as easy. They got lucky. The quarterback was actually reading the right side first. If he was reading the left, which is what he did all game, this would have been an easy gain right now. You let that ball go, and it's a foot race, and I mean it's at least a first down inside the 10.
So that's wild real quick, Dominic, because, my eyes go to the rail first, to the flare, to the rail route, because we know from watching the game as fans, like, that's what killed us.
Yeah.
And I think it happened 3 or 4 times, including the drop, but it's actually 5 times because he didn't
Yeah.
see it on this
He
particular.
didn't see it. Exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of weird that he didn't see it because I would imagine they told him that's where he needs to start. A lot of times quarterbacks will just guess and they'll think, okay, they're going to correct it, whatever mistake they're making, and they don't stick to what they've been coached to do, and maybe that's what happened here. But it's just really weird for him to read this from right to left here, because with that condensed split, you can already see that corner's already in a compromised position pre-snap. And as soon as that ball snapped, he squeezes it. Right now, you already know you got it.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be on that for very long to see. I mean, that's an absolute win. And for him to read this from right to left, I think his eyes just got stuck because of the motion, or I'm not sure what it was. But either way, they still ended up with a really good play. And what happens here again, and I'll show it from the tight copy. You can see, let me see if I could get to it. What number 1 was trying to communicate was to tell 12, or for 12 to tell 8. So that's what I have circled here. He's trying to get 12 to tell 8, hey, you have a rail that's coming out to you. You need to stay out there. Okay, you can see it here. He's trying to look at, you can see, I mean, he's and 12 gives him nothing back. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of the verbal and nonverbal communication. He's telling him, the wave probably means something. Hey, banjo, or in and out. It's letting him know, and he's saying, hey, you gotta let the corner know he needs to stay outside for the rail. And 12 gives him nothing. He doesn't know. You can see he's confused. He looks, and he steps up. He doesn't know what 1 is trying to tell him. 1 knows exactly what's going to happen, and it happens. And I can tell by their reaction right here. You just can barely see it. You see number 8 after the snap kind of look back at the safeties like, hey, man, I need a little help there. Like, what, we were supposed to be in something, and you didn't give it to me. I end up squeezing, and now we gave up a big first down right there. He kind of looks, he points. 1 is telling him like, hey, man, you got to be outside. Like, my safety didn't tell me,
Yeah. This is something where last year Florida State had a veteran in that position. It was Akeem Dent, who, when he was in the games and out of the games, you could tell differently. There were more busts. And Dominic, I'm assuming that you would agree here, but tell me if I'm wrong. This is the value of having a veteran back there. Like, Shaheem Brown, number 1's been there for a couple of years, but Akeem Dent was a guy that you could lean on. He'd been in the program for 5 years. And now 12 is Conrad Hussey, a redshirt freshman who is, being broken into the position. He didn't even start the season. Devontae Brown, a veteran transfer, was there, but now they're shuffling in a redshirt freshman. So this is what comes with that, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And that's, you can see it on multiple times on these plays, on all of these plays. I can tell that number 1 knows what needs to be done. He's attempting to communicate it, and either guys aren't getting the communication or they're not understanding the communication. Or they do understand it and they're just late to react post snap. They're getting the pre-snap communication, but post snap they're not understanding what their job is. So here's another example. 28 is on 0. So they line up an empty. You can see, so 28 here is the guy who's going to need to communicate, because his motion guy, the guy that is on his side of the football, goes in orbit motion to the opposite side. So right now, the defenders on the other side need to know, hey, that guy is to you. We're in a condensed formation. You're gonna get rail over there. They've been running it all game. We saw it last week. We got to know, hey, we're getting rail from the backfield. There's guys in the stands who are half drunk that know we're getting rail into the boundary.
Yeah.
But you got to communicate that to your other defenders on that side. You can see he gives them nothing the whole time. There's motion, nothing. We're still waiting for communication. Here's the concept. We've already seen it. It should be burned into your memory.
Yep, it is.
We're getting mesh rail. And right there, he points. You can see he'll do a little point. It's too late. Okay, so we end up with a 2-on-1 on the OTB, which we don't need because we have leverage out here. The outside corner has leverage on the back. This would have been covered very easily. and this backer that's sitting in the curl window would have been underneath the curl, and the safety over the top of that curl or the OTB route. So everybody would be covered down, and you wouldn't have a play. But we don't get the communication. We squeeze it and give up a huge chunk play again on third down. And third downs are the name of the game, man. You win on third down, you win football games. It's really, really simple. Third down in red zone. Okay, so we'll watch it here from the tight. This is a really good look because, again, it's not that guys aren't communicating. Look at 18. It's a lot of communication going on. They do a good job. There's just these small breakdowns. 28 never gave us anything until right now. And it's too late. The ball snapped. 18 is leveraged, meaning number 0, the running back, is outside leverage of number 18. If he was a 4-2 and number 0 was a 4-4, number 0 still would win that.
Yeah.
He's obviously not a 4-2. So you're not going to win. You're already out. You're out leveraged. That's going to be a completion. It's going to be at very least a 8-yard gain in the first down. But if you communicate it well, the corner stays outside. He doesn't squeeze this OTB. Now he doesn't have leverage on that, and that's going to be either a pick if he makes the bad throw, or it's going to be a blow-up shot there. And that bobble that's going to end up being a ball on the ground. It's fourth down. You got to punt, put the ball back in the offense's hands.
Well, and that's something too, again, just from live speed. If you're me watching that play, I'm seeing 18 trailing, running behind the target of the play, and I'm thinking that's his fault. He doesn't know what he's looking at. So this is that you hear this sometimes from players. You're making me look bad, to one of their teammates. It's not 18's fault at all, is what you're saying there. That's on his partner who needs to tell him.
Not at all. He's already, again, like I just showed you guys on the tight, he's already at a disadvantaged position.
Yeah.
Okay, because he is tucked inside the box. He's responsible for the B gap on run. So when the ball snapped, he does not have the leverage to cover the rail route. So as long as we can push the coverage in that direction, keep the corner outside, he can take the in-breaking route, which is the OTB that's right there next to him. Mm-hmm. And this corner can absolutely run with number 0 from the backfield. He has leverage, and he probably has a speed advantage. But you got to communicate that to me, because I'm locked in on my assignment, what I need to do. And, and that guy came from the other side. He came from your side.
Right.
He switched to my side. Now, experienced guys and really, really, this is where having like a high IQ football guys, they can do it without the communication. But you're going to need it, man. You never know, man. A guy just got a chipped ankle, a bruised shoulder, just chased down a 40-yard play. Maybe he was on punt team. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. Fatigue will make your mind go. And so that's why the communication is so important, because guys forget there's a lot in the game plan. There's a lot going on. Bullets are flying. And so, yeah, it's that's what makes football so great is it's such a team game, and there's 1/11th. We all got to do our 1/11th. And if you don't communicate with me, then I can't do the best thing that I can do for my, to get my job done. All right. And this was interesting because it's like the OC. Who is the OC?
Bill O'Brien's the new head coach.
Bill O'Brien's the head coach, right? So Bill O'Brien, or the OC over there, said, you know what? We don't even need mesh. We're just going to run a rail and see what happens here. So one already knows, hey, that guy's going to run a rail. He's pointing. He knows he's going to run a rail. He's trying to communicate it to 23. You watch, he's communicating. Oh, he's over communicating, which I love. I see verbal and nonverbal communication here. It's clear that he's trying to get a message across to the other defenders, and mainly the defender to his right, who he's working with. 23 doesn't get the message for whatever reason, whether that's they don't have clear communication in terms of what to say, whether they've never worked this technique and he hasn't practiced with one enough, or what it is. I can't tell you for sure what it is, but somehow with all of that communication that one gave him, he doesn't get it. He squeezes it. When he squeezes it, one then realizes, oh shoot, nobody's going to cover 6. So then he tries to jump back and cover 6. Then he realizes, oh, the ball's being thrown. Let me go try to make a play. And we end up with 2 defenders in chase. We got 2 guys covering 0 people. Nobody covered 6 or 0. We could have had a touchdown to either of them. They didn't even bother running rail. I just noticed we got a lineman downfield here. Oh no, that's a tight end. That's a big old tight end.
That's Boston College for you.
Yeah, man, that's a big old tight end. I thought that was a lineman downfield, but yeah, both these guys are open, and it's, you can see one. You watch the body language. I think you get it better on the tight. Here again, you see communication. You're getting, I mean, he's even pointing to where he's going. Hey, he's going rail. Guy goes rail. So he sits. You see, he's sitting. He's planning on playing the inside guy. Then he realizes, oh, you didn't take the outside guy, so I'll go take him. And then you can see after the touchdown, I mean, even before the touchdown, look, he's already pointing like, bro, I told you they were going to run a rail. I told you they're going to run a rail. And there it is. Another touchdown.
Now, if you're a defensive coach in this room right now, you know, the coach, not the player, how despondent are you trying? I mean, because you're asking guys the questions. They're different players. It's not always the same, too. It's not always the same combination.
Yep.
But how does you feeling in that moment?
So this is one of the things. Now, in the moment, you're not feeling this way, but you have to tip your cap to BC for putting different players in the same positions.
Right.
Because that's exactly, you're picking on something that you know the defense is inept in, but you're not, you know, if coach is making that change and it's for one guy or that correction and one guy's getting it, that means somebody else isn't getting it, you know, and that's why like those little meetings on the sideline are so important, that everybody's locked in, even the backups, because you might get this one thing that I'm correcting I'm correcting the starter on it, but it may be you that's out there when this happens. When they try to run mesh rail, you're going to be in there. Safety's going to be communicating to you, hey, you got to take the rail. So you got to know what you're doing. And even if you're you know, so yeah, you're losing it in the moment. But for me, being a football savant and just loving the game so much, you're also got to tip your cap to the other guy and go, man, he keeps putting me in conflict with my communication. I either got to change the way that my guys are communicating, or we got to get into a whole new coverage that maybe we hadn't worked on, or maybe we didn't do a lot of, you know, or whatever it is. So you're really kind of, he's putting you in a really tough spot, you know, as the OC is, or whoever's calling plays. And, you know, that's today's game, man.
So we've seen a lot of the mesh and the rail, and they didn't really need the mesh very often. In fact, the one time they used it, D-Rob, the rail was still open. But let's get to a different facet of some things that are troubling and what the All-22 is telling you. Go for it.
Yeah, so the next thing is just a couple clips of them just not fitting the run well. Again, like 9 guys doing their job, 10 guys doing their job, and maybe one guy not being gap sound, either not knowing where he's supposed to be or just not getting there. So, you know, this is obviously a big point. Anytime you can get them backed up here, you'd love to keep them down here, at least a punt from the end zone. You know, Georgia Tech comes out in a heavy set, and they just run a simple counter play. And this is actually fold, and it's completely gapped out on the side. You see where the guy is pulling. They're trying to run the ball to the right side here, and everything is just completely gapped out. Everybody's doing a really good job. Obviously, the receivers are covered up. So here you have 11 down here at the bottom. So he is going to be responsible for, you can see, actually, I'm going to go to the tight on this.
Yeah, the question is this from just my perspective, is this number 1 or number 18, the backside linebacker or the safety's responsibility here?
Yep. So that's exactly what I'm going to show you right here. Okay. So after the ball snapped, you'll watch the nose tackle, which is right here, is slanting across. So that means he is responsible for the opposite A gap, which means he is long sticking into the A gap here. So he's going to cross his face.
Okay.
When that happens, that means that this gap is accounted for. So this player has to work out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this player is going to box it and keep everything inside of him. So that guy right here has to be in that space. When the ball snapped, he jumps over to look at all these gaps.
Yeah.
Completely canceled out. He jumps over there and they don't need him over there. He is supposed to be right here. And he has to be here, obviously, because he's got the quarterback, which is a very dangerous, ball carrier,
Yep.
for this team. So everybody, I mean, you got 9, 10 guys that are exactly where they need to be, and one guy rocks over the top when he's not supposed to. The gaps are all canceled out inside of him, and there goes the ball. And now you're backed up. Possession ends up being, in one play, the ball's already on the 25 where a touchback would be. That's what makes you sick, as a defensive coach. It's that moment right there. Now, I will also say number 11 should not get pushed all the way back to that side of the ball. He's got to, at this point, he's got to post and work vertically this way. And that will make this tight for him.
Right.
But either way, that's 18 cannot work over the top to that side.
Right.
That's exactly where the line players are all in these gaps. And they have a backer here. All right. So these gaps, that's what we call gapped out. Those gaps are all canceled. You don't need any additional players. You even got a safety that's over the top of that, and you got another backer that's outside of that. We need you back here. Until that ball is completely gone to the right side, you can't fold over.
Right. So again, primary responsibility there would be 18. But this is something that Adam Fuller talked about after game 1 against Georgia Tech. He thought they were soft on the edges. Now, this isn't an edge, but the idea being at least wall it off, at least be physical and get moving north and south. Because if 11 does that, Patrick Payton in this situation, what
Correct.
you're saying is that Trayshawn Ward, number 0, the running back, former Florida State Seminole, he might have to stutter step, so it's a gain of 12 instead of a gain of 20, that kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a big part of it, is just being soft on the edge there. Yeah, I would still consider that the edge. I mean, that's
Okay.
If he gets any sort of penetration there, that's going to help. That's definitely going to help, and that ball is not going to be getting vertical. You can see 0 is getting vertical the whole time.
Right.
There's no point where he has to really move. I mean, he's moving, he's cutting, he's getting downfield laterally, but he's never moving like at a 90 degree. And that's going to be a problem. You're going to get creased there. Okay. Very, very similar. You're going to get a very similar look here. One of the things that's a little bit different here, and this is, why offenses are doing it and doing it so prevalently. The jet motion forces guys to be disciplined with their eyes. So you can have really good feet. I've heard a lot of chatter the last couple of days is, Florida State, we have better players than these other teams that we're playing. The way that you can balance out that, that imbalance is by making a guy play slower. And the way you make a guy play slower is you give him eye candy. You give his eyes, you distract his eyes from what he's supposed to be doing. So right here, they go jet motion that pulls 10 out, and you can see the ball spits up inside of him. So when I go to the tight copy, I'll show you who's responsible for what gap. So right now, this ball snapped. The jet motion will put this defender is going to squeeze this thing, and he's going to try and spill it right here. So spill means that if this guy were to come block him, he's going to try and work inside of him and make the ball bounce outside here. So when he goes to spill it, this defender needs to be outside of the spill
Mhm.
So he's going to spill it right to him. Well, because of the jet motion, he goes way outside of his lane right there. Okay. So he should be right up inside of that spill that number 7 is trying to do. And honestly, I don't even like where he is. He should be on the other shoulder of that guard pulling. Is
Right,
that
right.
guard or tackle? He should be on the upfield shoulder. But there's no reason for 10 to be out there. He should be right in here. And that ball is going to just have to bounce outside of him. And there's definitely not going to be anything there if that happens.
What's alarming about this, Dominic, is that, a lot of these concepts you're showing, especially pulling guards and so forth, gaps, this is
Yeah,
before St. Rose.
there are stuff. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
it's our stuff. Yeah.
So they should have seen it in camp before install to begin with,
Yeah.
like that's the alarming thing here.
Yeah, it's our stuff. And it's stuff that they've shown to be, adept at stopping in the past.
Yeah.
So it is definitely alarming to see guys, really just not take care of their responsibility. Getting whooped on a play is one thing. We hadn't seen a lot of that. A lot of these are just, guys just not doing their job, not being disciplined in their assignments. It's not just a guy beating a guy. We're not necessarily getting way blown off the ball. There's definitely can get a lot more penetration, but
Yeah.
so here's go back to week 1. I'll show the tight copy, gives a little bit better angle on it. Again, we're seeing communication, which I love. The ball is snapped. Okay, you can see number 7 is squeezing down the B gap right here. Okay, so this defender's in the A. This defender has done a good job compressing the B, which means 10 needs to fit outside of him. For some reason, he starts to do it, and then he gets stuck inside. He's trying to go make a play that's not his play.
Mhm.
His play is out here on the outside shoulder of this guy. He goes to make a play that he's not supposed to make. The ball spits outside of him. 22 should be approaching the run here. He's a little bit late. He doesn't take a great angle.
Yep.
When you do that and you're facing a good ball carrier, he's going to take advantage of it. He makes a great cut. That alley should be compressed. It should be, if he's going into the alley, he should be running laterally like this around 10 because 10's body's right here. But 10's body's too far inside, which allows him to attack the outside of 22. 22 should actually be about here. And now one of these two guys is going to make a tackle in the alley. He leaves too much space, gives space for wiggle. Guy makes a great move, and you're now, inside the 5, first and goal from inside the 5.
There was a little bit of that from 22. Again, this isn't about picking on kids, but there was a change, Dominic, at safety, 22 for 12. After this game. But then what you invite is 22 is a veteran, 12 is a redshirt freshman. That's the communication issue that you talk about. So it's almost like pick your poison of what is going to short circuit when you're in a situation like this.
It is, and I'll be honest, man, watching this, a lot of this has been anything that could go wrong did. Like a lot of this, and not that other teams are getting lucky because they're definitely doing a lot to create conflicts and problems, but a lot of it is things like this happen, and then the team, doesn't quite take advantage of it for whatever reason. A guy slips, a guy trips, a guy falls. This one is like every time, or a guy who's not in a position that he normally is or needing to communicate is now the guy that they're going at. And some of it you can give the other team credit, but some of it I think is just luck. You just happen to send the motion towards a guy who just got in the game, or a guy who doesn't communicate as well. And it's just one of those things. That's why everybody's got to be ready. Here's another look at, just not fitting the gaps quite right. So this was one where again, kind of that similar movement up front that we saw before from 11, where right now, okay, so this is called heads or tails. So he's getting the tail of this lineman. So he needs to get vertical off of the tail. If the offensive lineman turned towards him, he would then need to cross his face inside of him. Okay, so he's getting his tail here. So when you get the tail, you should be off the tail and vertical. Well, he continues to work laterally a little bit too long, which then puts 10 in a position where he's a little bit too tight. He should be out here on the outside edge of this guy. But because he couldn't get vertical, because this guy was getting lateral across his face, he kind of takes a bad angle. Also, he ends up on the inner half of this guy, or really head up. He should not be there, and the ball spits outside of him. Kind of a similar situation where the safety is trying to squeeze the C gap as much as he can. There's only so much you can ask when the guy's 320 pounds. That's about as much squeeze as you're going to get. I wouldn't say that's a bad job. He maybe shouldn't go upfield as much as he does here at this point when you realize it's counter, it's a run. We don't want you, 4 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Right.
He's right now, he's got to just kind of post and just try to make it cloudy right here. But he kind of goes up and tries to get around, which again, he's 320 pounds and running at you. I don't necessarily blame him for trying to take half, but you end up in a bad spot there and give up a big play. So the last couple plays I want to show has nothing to do with scheme. Really little to do with ability. It's just guys not making plays. If at certain times, if you're unblocked, the unblocked guy's got to make a play. Okay, so this guy, he slightly gets pushed in the back, but at this point, right now, he's getting screened. He triggers, doesn't make the play, and now you end up giving up a big chunk.
Looks like he's a step late there, yeah, on the trigger.
He's just slightly late on it. And, again, that's the difference between winning and losing football games oftentimes is just being slightly late. Hey, maybe you get a block in the back. If you show up a little bit sooner, maybe you get that call. But that guy's completely unblocked. And, I think the important part is that was a first quarter play. Now you're looking at a fourth quarter play.
Oh, this is the one.
And, and they feel like, hey, well, let's come back to it. They run it to the other side, and you got a completely unblocked guy, and we get nothing.
That's the difference in the game, Dominic. That's a gain of 12.
That's it. That is it. This play was huge, and I just watching this real time. I freaked out on this play.
Yeah,
because it seems inconsequential, but it's a third down. It's third and, it's from the 38-yard line. It's third and, 15, 17. And they throw us a play that's supposed to get him 5 yards. It gets him 14. And, that ends up being the game right there. And again, the thing that's frustrating is for all of the physical mistakes, the scheme mistakes, and them beating you up front and all of that, you still had a chance unblocked. This has nothing to do with physicality. This has nothing to do with getting beat up front. This is literally an unblocked defender that just falls down. And then you got a corner that doesn't get off a block, which he is getting blocked by a tight end, which is a tough mismatch. But you just have to make this play at every level of football.
Yeah.
And you're not going to win games if you don't. And those are the plays that, last year, in order to be 13-0, you don't miss these. These are tackles for loss. These are tackles for 1 yard gain, 2 yard gain. And this is how teams are going to attack you going forward.
Yeah, this is that's Georgia Tech kicking the field goal right after that play and the game-winning field goal. I can tell you I was there in the press box in Dublin, and we're right over that. We're 50-yard line. They're great press box seats. As the ball's leaving quarterback's hand, you're like, oh, gain of 1, gain of 2. This kid's going to need to hit a bomb from 56 or 57 to win the game. Wonder if they even try it. Maybe they just say, let's go to overtime. Instead, because the play's not made, there we are, 0-1 at that point, and it got worse. So, Dominic, you're telling me, though, in the beginning, and as you're running through these things and you're seeing the reasons why, I just want to get your quick thoughts on, how fixable is this? How basic are these mistakes? And how much hope would you have for games against Memphis and Cal and SMU coming up the next 3?
Well, I have plenty of hope. That's for sure. There, like I said at the beginning of this, the mistakes are definitely correctable. Obviously, especially communication. What I'm interested in, I think the more interesting part or the bigger part is how do you correct them?
Mm-hmm.
Do you continue to do what you've always done, which I think has brought Adam Fuller and Florida State defense a lot of success. And do you continue to kind of hound on those things? And hey, the guys before you did it, there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. Or do you alter your scheme a little bit? Maybe you are checking in the zone during condensed formations, because that's what we're getting a lot of. Is a lot of condensed formations, and then which force you to communicate. And so maybe you put your guys in position where, some coaches would decide, okay, maybe this group won't communicate as well. So I got to put them in communication in positions where they have to communicate less.
Yeah.
And I think that's where to me, that's where the meat lies within coaching. It's not necessarily what you do, but it's how you implement the things, and when you decide to just scrap what you've always done or what you like to do, maybe what you came into the season doing, maybe what your guy did last year. When you scrap all of that and you go, we're going to do this totally different, reinventing how you're going to get the same thing done, I think is, when you talk about like the great coaches, the Sabans and the Belichicks and Andy Reid's and those guys, it's like the ability to evolve in real time, not after the season, not in the off season, but evolving in real time during the season is where you really find like, the elite level coaches and the guys that can really do it. So that's what I'm most intrigued about, is like, there's definitely correctable things. 90% of what I showed here was absolutely correctable. How you do it is going to be interesting. Do you change your scheme, or do you keep doing the same scheme and maybe you clean up the way we communicate? Maybe it's all hand signals. Maybe it's no hand signals, and you make a guy give a verbal. Again, the thing that I didn't like that I saw was one guy giving hand signals, nonverbal, and the other guy not giving it back.
Right.
So maybe you start to punish guys for, or discipline guys for not giving it back. You start holding them accountable for, hey, when I see one hand signal from the safety, the corner better be doing the same hand signal.
Right.
Or whatever reciprocating hand signal goes with that. So maybe that's the way you clean it up. That's cool. By forcing them to do that, and you double down on what you've always done. So I'm interested to see what he decides.
Well, we all got a lot smarter today, and that's what we're going to be watching for against Memphis. Is communication pre-snap, the alignments. Do they look like they're in man, they're in zone? Even if you're like me and he didn't play the game or he didn't coach the game, you just got smart enough to see what that looks like if you're going to be in the stands at Doak Campbell or watching on television. If you enjoyed this feature, there will be another one on Florida State's offense. So we're going to be breaking down Florida State's offense in the days to come as well, right here on this channel. Subscribe to it. It's free. Hit the like button underneath the video, because even when the news isn't good, Dominic Robinson shows up and tells you why. And somehow, Dominic, like you, I feel better after watching this video. So we always appreciate your insights. And I don't want to say I look forward to the offensive breakdown, but I kind of do. I kind of do look forward to the offensive breakdown. It was a pleasure today, man. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
All right, man.
All right,
Go
everybody.
Noles.
He says it. Go Noles.